Hello everyone. So today we will be discussing a couple of judgments. Firstly, the first three judgments are the judgments of Supreme Court. In that, the first judgment that we are discussing is the judgment in the case of Bhatnagar Education Research Trust. This is a Kolkata-based trust. It is primarily formed with the object of providing relief to the poor and needy, medical relief, education and advancement of any other object of public utility. Now, this trust was granted registration under Section 12 in the year 2010, and consequently it was also granted approval under Section 80G in 2010. Up to 2015, this trust did not have any problem, being as in it was considered as a charitable trust and it was allowed exemption under Section 11. However, there was a survey in case of a third trust, which was popularly, as everybody is now aware, the School of Human Genetics and Population Health, which is again a Kolkata-based trust. I call it popular, the reason being this trust is primarily used to claim weighted average deduction, which many judgments of the tribunal have come after in the recent times, where they have allowed, they have considered this issue of allowance of donation given to this particular trust, that is the School of Human Genetics, to claim weighted deduction. However, in this case, that is the decision of the Supreme Court, the situation is reversed, where the School of Human Genetics is giving donation to the assessee, that is Bhatnagar Trust. Now, there was a survey in 2015 in the case of this School of Human Genetic Trust. During the course of survey, statement of the two key members, that is the treasurer and the secretary, were recorded. Now, in the question answer session with the treasurer admitted that yes, this trust is receiving money from various corporate individuals. There are some 9 brokers involved who help us in getting these donations and also giving donations, and we are earning some 7-8% commission out of this. It also said that yes, our trust is being used, the reason being that it is eligible for exemption under 80G, and also people can get deduction under Section 35. Similarly, statement of the secretary, that is Srimati Samadrita Mukherjee, was also recorded. She also gave similar answers to whatever questions were put forth, and she also said that yes, checks are issued to various companies specified by the broker, and the sum is returned, which the trust, that is the School of Human Genetics, shows it as expense. Also, pursuant to this search, there was a proceeding initiated for cancellation of registration in this case of School of Human Genetics. Now, during that proceeding, this secretary wrote a letter to the concerned income tax authority, giving a list of donations which were given by the School of Human Genetics, against which they were getting cash. And in that list, assessee's name, that is Bhatnagar Education Trust name, was there, and it was written that they've given a donation of 1.24 crores to this to Bhatnagar Education Trust. Now, School of Human Genetics later on went before the Settlement Commission, admitted that this is an undisclosed income, and accordingly offered whatever income they could for tax. And subsequent to that, most interestingly, even me as an assessee, Bhatnagar Education Trust, offered this amount, that the donation that I've received, in my return of income as my income. Now, pursuant to this survey action and cancellation of registration, there was a survey in the case of assessee also, because they got to know that School of Human Genetics is giving donations to me also, as me means the assessee. So they conducted a survey at my place under 133A, where again the trust admitted that they give back cash after receiving donation. Now, here also the primary or the key statement, which is the entire basis of the decision of Supreme Court, is the statement of the managing trustee. During when his statement was recorded, he admitted that yes, they have paid cash to School of Human Genetics, which is in return of the donation given by them. And there were various questions that were put forth before him. He was first asked whether in earlier years you have entered into any bogus transaction. He said no, our earlier year transactions were all genuine. It is only during 11-12 and 12-13 we entered into major bogus transactions. And he gave the reason why they are doing this, because so that they could incur capital expenditure which they required for the purpose of expansion of the college or the trust, whatever they call it. And a ledger copy was shown to the managing trustee, giving a details of the donations. He's identified the donations, saying that out of these all are the bogus donations. Now, pursuant to this survey, again, in my case also, proceedings were initiated for cancellation of registration. Now, before I go to that, I may just refer to section 12AA, which is where the principal CIT has been given power to cancel the registration. In that, the two primary conditions are that the activities of the trust or the institution should not be genuine, or the activities are carried out not in accordance with the object of the trust. If either of this condition is there, then the principal CIT shall pass an order in writing cancelling the registration. Now, in the show cause notice, he is giving these two reasons. That is, the objects of the trust are not genuine. The activities are not carried out in accordance with the trust. He's also saying that during the course of survey, the treasurer and the secretary of the School of Human Genetics admitted this amount that they are giving, admitted that they are giving bonus donation. Plus, as I stated earlier, the secretary wrote a letter to the concerned income tax authority giving a list of donors to whom they have donated, and my name was there in the list. So on this ground, he issued me a show cause notice saying that we intend to cancel your registration. Now, I replied to that. However, my reply was not considered, and the commissioner passed the order against me cancelling my registration with effect from 1st April 2012. His reasons for cancelling the registration was that this section, that is 12AA ATG section 11, have been brought into the statute to encourage the social causes, or probably the larger benefit to the weaker sections of the society rather. So basically to provide medical relief to the poor, promote education among the masses, and to support the poor section of the society. However, assessee does not, from the conduct of the assessee, it appears that it is involved in a large amount of bogus transactions. So also in the order, he's saying that the trust has voluntarily offered this income in the return of income. And in fact, the School of Human Genetics has also in the Settlement Commission filed an application and confirmed
message.
Yeah. So yeah, on this basis, the CIT cancelled my registration. It said that my objects of the trust are violative of, as in my activities are violative of the objects of the trust. And this is not the only party from which I've received this kind of donation. I've been into this similar transactions with other parties also over the years. And accordingly, he cancelled my registration. Now, against this, I went before the tribunal saying that my arguments before the tribunal was that the order of the CIT is simply on the basis of surmises. He's not brought any cogent material or evidence on record to substantiate that the primary two conditions of section 12AA, that is, my activities are not in accordance with the objects of the trust, and I am doing some non-genuine business in the trust. So I said that the statement of the secretary that the CIT is referring to has nowhere, treasurer has nowhere my name. Even the statement of the secretary did not have my name. It is only in the letter that the secretary filed before the income tax authority there was a mention, but that itself also does not establish that I had given any bogus donation. It is merely saying that I have given donation to so and so party. So as far as the assessee is concerned, assessee requested for donation and it got the donation. So that should not be considered as a bogus donation. And there is, so on this basis, this was my arguments before the ITAT. However, the department said that the managing trustee itself has admitted during the survey that these donations are bogus, and there is no, in the light of this admission, the registration should be cancelled. Tribunal said that these statements of treasurer and secretary are, we understand, are clear that they were accepting cash and giving donations. And but in the statement recorded during the survey, there was no mention of assessee. And in fact, even whenever the secretary has admitted or at a later stage, all these admissions were by a third party and it were not binding on the assessee. So even in the proceeding for cancellation of registration, assessee has not taken any stand of all the evidence against the assessee. So on this basis, however, the tribunal said that there are clear evidence on record that the assessee was not genuine and hence the registration is liable to be cancelled. Then I again filed an appeal before the High Court. Again, before the High Court, I argued that I have been giving donation to various donors and I am under no obligation to verify whether what activities that trust is carrying on or whether the funds of the donors, what are the source of the funds of the donors, or whether those funds were acquired by performance of any unlawful activity. It is not my obligation to find out those things. According to me, the funds are applied for the purpose of the trust, and there is no evidence to show that these funds were applied for any illegal or immoral activity or for any namesake. So which are the two primary conditions under 12AA, that the CIT has to prove that the activities are not carried out in accordance with the objects of the trust. Also, there was another question of law taken before the High Court, is that what is the evidentiary value of the survey statement. In that regard also, I submitted various statements, various judgments to say that this statement recorded under 133A should not be given much evidentiary value, when otherwise the evidences show that the assessee has been carrying out activities as per the objects of the trust. Now, the High Court did not decide on this issue of evidentiary value of the statement recorded during survey. It only went on the merits of the case and decided in the favor of the assessee. It again reiterated what the assessee argued before the High Court, that the assessee is under no obligation to verify the source or whether the funds are acquired out of any unlawful activities or lawful activities. Plus, the department has not been able to establish a case so as to warrant that the cancellation. Yeah. So on this basis, the High Court decided in favor of the assessee. Then I appeared before the, then department went in appeal before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court simply said that because the managing director has himself admitted that yes, they have given given cash in return of the donations. So this clearly shows that there was a misuse of the status enjoyed by the trusts. And these answers also showed that the donations were received by way of check, out of which substantial money was plowed back or returned to the donors in cash. Thus, these facts show that those were bogus donations, and the registration under 12AA was completely misused by the trust. An entity which is misusing the status conferred to it under 12AA is not entitled to. However, it did not comment upon how the object assessee has not applied this amount towards the object of the trust. Also, it did not address the issue about what is the evidentiary value of the survey statement. On this basis, I pass it over to Vipul sir for his views.
Yes. So the reason for going in detail is, see, this is the way the things are going about. If you see now, the High Court, one of the main issue before the High Court by the SSE was that you are relying upon only my statement, because admittedly in case of survey at the time of genetics, my name was not surfaced. My name surfaced only because some letter communicated by that SSE in their case, settlement case, and the only evidence against me was my own Secretary of Office Bearer statement, which I say had no evidentiary value. Now, of course, we have a Supreme Court judgment, Kedar Khan, and what a judge, because survey statement has no evidentiary value. I can understand the court may take different view. Say, no, under the change, whatever the position is changed or whatever. But if one reads the judgment, there is absolutely no discussion about the merits of the case. Supreme Court only went by the perception, and I'm saying perception in the sense that it is about the statement of the only reliance placed by the Honorable Supreme Court is the statement given by my managing trustee, which I stated it has no evidentiary value. But then Supreme Court did not touch that issue either way. Supreme Court very well said, okay, we don't agree, and we place it evidentiary value. And just Supreme Court in a perception, no, you have been found with indulging so many things, and this should not be tolerated. I mean, fine. That is the general thing that if you found. But question is why I have selected the judgment or Sharma ji and Zinfo in Italy is that today, even that case of human genetics, so many of you must be knowing that today in the hands of donor who had given alleged to have given donation to the human genetics, and human genetics alleged to have given me cash back. On the basis of this, many assessment of them on the tribunal case, SSC has succeeded. So human genetics might say anything, but as far as I'm concerned, I get genuine donation. Now they might have paid back cash to somebody who, whatever, I am not concerned. And some cases we have succeeded, some cases whatever. But the issue is that larger issue is that whether perception, however genuine may be, however the circumstantial evidence may be, can it take place of evidence, the law of evidence, or whether without proving the evidentiary value of that statement. Now, question is likely today we have got case of bogus cases, we have got bogus loans, we have got penny stocks, correct? Now, so many cases of penny stocks, so many cases of bogus things, but where a similar thing that the counterparty has given statement, whatever they said is bogus, I will bogus, but then courts are taking nothing to do with that messaging. But independently, in case of my case, SSK independently department is to prove whatever the counterparty may say. These are the what trail is going on. Now it's very difficult to decide the issue because one end you have got a very solid perception or very and rightly so you very solid circumstantial evidence is your sixth sense says it is bogus. I am saying your means a judge's point of view. But then ultimately, as it is a majesty of law, hands are tied. Ultimately, however you may feel strongly about, but ultimately, if there is no evidence on record, evidence means the acceptable evidence, depending upon the enactment, income tax said whatever, not strict law of evidence, but okay, still some evidence is required to make any addition or some type of cancellation. So I think I always take cite a case of the bodyguard who assassinated our Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. He was caught red-handed, but still he was put to trial, and very prominent law defended him. Unless you are proven guilty, whatever maybe you are caught, but ultimately you have to go by the due process of law. So I think the larger issue is this: that if you run this judgment, the very fundamental issue raised by the SR is that the statement has no probative value, no evidentiary value, and especially when High Court has held in my favor. So then by overruling the High Court judgment, perhaps it would have been suppose one expected that the Supreme Court could have been a little bit more elaborate. While maybe Supreme Court may ultimately reverse the judgment, there is no issue, but to deal with each and every aspect of the matter. But still, overall, I think that whatever all the judgments and all these bogus shares, bogus loans, all these bogus things are going on. Ultimately, I think I am personally taking look at we not only as a moral duty not to encourage SSC to do this, but by and large, SSC also realized that and the time will come when the trail will change. So far, so good. We have good many judgments like the penny stock. So many bogus tribal judgments are very good. Most of the things are favoring SSC, under the technical point of evidence, whatever. But I tell you, sometime the time will come when the court will have to. I'll say have to be no choice. Will have to shed the strict rule of evidence even for income tax point of view, and your natural justice thing, your whatever maybe uh, found to be irrelevant against the strong evidence of the counterparty. So now we have to keep our fingers crossed. That's how I think I see, right? I look at this judgment. Yeah, next.
Friends,
Any
yeah,
discussion? I'm sorry, I forgot. Yeah.
Friends, if anyone has any issue on the case law discussed, they can just post it on the Q&A box or can raise their hand so we can discuss one or two, three issues out of each judgment. Before I request the Dinkle to take up the second judgment, friends, I recognize the presence of Sri Prashant Maharshi sir, Honorable ITAT member from Delhi. I really admire his zeal to update himself, and in the process, he also contributes a lot in our discussion also. Welcome, Prashant Maharshi sir. Yes, Dinkle, you can take second. Hello.
Yes, Sharma ji. Yeah.
Yeah.
The second judgment is again a judgment of the Supreme Court in the case of Aqua Technologies. This was assessee's appeal before the Supreme Court. The issue involved here is basically whether the interest liability that was outstanding in my case, I have discharged it by way of issue of debentures to the concerned bank or financial institution, whether that will amount to payment as required under section 43B(d) of the Act. Now, before going into what the section is and what are the legal position, the facts in this case was that the assessee had heavily borrowed a certain amount from various financial institutions, and ICICI was the lead manager. Now, because of various financial difficulties that the assessee was facing, its interest got accumulated to around 3 crore rupees. So it approached one of the banks, that was the lead financial bank, that I'm not in a position to pay the interest and also the liquidated damages, kindly help me. So they came out with a rehabilitation plan, and by way of letter dated 30th March 1994, this is pertaining to assessment year 96-97. So this all happened before the relevant assessment year. The lead institution said that, okay, we are waiving your compound interest along with the commitment charges, and we are ready to accept the debentures that you are issuing in lieu of the outstanding interest. And the assessee in turn issued, now this is almost after a period of 2 years that the assessee issued the debentures in the favor of ICICI. ICICI was acting as the trustee for various banks from which the assessee had taken loan. Now, later on, after almost 2 years, there was a correspondence from ICICI that this interest that you have, that is charged in your account, will be considered to be paid, and the amount will be utilized by us to subscribe to the debentures. There was another letter which said that the funded interest aggregating to so and so is recognized as a business income in our accounts. So basically, I had claimed this amount as an expenditure in my books in the assessment year 96-97, which is the year in which I had issued the debentures. So, however, the assessing officer, and in the year in which these debentures were redeemed, that is in the assessment year 1-2, I did not again claim this amount as an expenditure because there is an outflow from my account to pay the debenture holders. So I filed the return of income and I claimed interest deduction of 1.3 crores, whatever was there, that was considered as paid in lieu of the issue of debentures. The assessing officer said that it is merely a postponement of the liability and it will not be considered as actually paid. And plus the debenture issue is not in terms of the original terms that we had entered into. So I am not allowing the deduction. Then I came before the CIT appeals. I said that this outstanding interest actually, in lieu of which I have issued debentures, actually amounts to payment of interest under 43B. The reason being that under 43B, wherever the section wanted to say that it has to be by way of cash and check, they have specifically specified, for example, in the case of Provident Fund fund and ESIC, whereas in the case of interest, they have not specified clearly what is the prescribed mode of payment. So it could be any mode other than cash and check also. In this case, it is by way of issue of debentures. So I should be allowed the deduction, and it relied on various judgments. One of the primary judgment was the judgment of the Supreme Court, where it said that in a case involving receipt as well as payment, a single entry to effect give the net effect will be sufficient, instead of passing you paying the amount and then again receiving back the amount. So CIT appeal considered my submissions and allowed it in my favor. It said that yes, this will be debenture is a valuable secure. Also, there another aspect was argued before the CIT appeal was that this is not a loan. This is a debenture, and it is freely tradable, as in it can be freely negotiated in an open market, and that is why it should not be considered at par with loan. And whatever the explanation to section 43B is there, which had come on later on, will not be applicable in my case. Then department came in appeal before the tribunal. I again said that I am covered by the decisions that I had already cited before the CIT appeals. I further pointed out certain judgments which said that even when actual payment is not done by way of cash or check, but it is by way of any other mode, it could be by set of entries also, it is allowable expenditure. Tribunal took note of it, and finally said that it is an allowable expenditure before the reason being that interest is a contractual liability, it is not a statutory liability. And in case of statutory liability, there may be a requirement that you may want to defer it by just booking it in your accounts and later on deferring it for whatever reasons. But this is a contract between two private parties, and two private parties has a say in deciding how they want to discharge their obligation. In this case, the ICICI Bank and the SSE mutually agreed that the interest would be discharged by way of issuing of debentures. And they also considered the legislative intent of section 43B, why it was introduced. However, again, department went in appeal before the High Court. High Court, however, decided against the SSE. It said that the explanation 3C to section 43B is applicable in my case. It had come into effect from 1st April 1989. It said that if the interest is deferred by way of converting it into a fresh loan, then it will not be considered as payment under 43B, and it will not be an allowable expenditure. So then again, I filed a review petition before the High Court. However, the High Court again rejected the review petition. It said that we agree to you that I filed the review petition on two grounds. One, I said that debenture has been wrongly considered as loan. So that is and second was the question of law was framed wrongly, that it was wrongly considered as debenture as loan instead of debenture. So, however, the High Court again rejected my review petition also. It said that, yes, the arguments of the SSE are convincing, but in this case, because there is an explanation specifically 3C that has been introduced, so we will not be able to help the SSE, and we are deciding against the SSE. I filed an appeal before the Supreme Court. My primary arguments before the Supreme Court were that this actually is a contract between the two parties where they have mutually agreed that this amount is discharged, that is the interest amount is discharged by way of payment of issue of debentures. Second, the applicability of explanation 3C, I said that will not be applicable in this case, because when the decision of the High Court had come, that time this explanation had not was not introduced in the statute. Also, it relied on various judgments to say that debentures are actionable claims and it can be openly sold in the market, and that is why it should not be considered at par with the loans. Now, again, department argued the same thing, saying that debenture is to be considered like a loan, and that 43B starts with a non-obstinate clause that the amount has to be actually paid, and there is an explanation 3C. Supreme Court said that Supreme Court considered my arguments. It entirely discussed the legislative intent of 43B, then the subsequent circulars that had come. And it said that, again, like I said before, that because it is an agreement between two private parties, they have mutually decided, so it is to be allowed to them as an expenditure. And also, by this transaction, there is no misuse of section 43B. So it cannot be considered that I am trying to take advantage of 43B and converting it into a fresh loan, and that is why it should not be allowable. It also discussed various principles of interpretation of statute, and finally said that High Court is in error and concluded that the interest on the facts of this case has been converted into loan. It is not a loan. It is a finding of fact recorded by the lower authorities that it was clearly a discharge of the interest liability by issuance of debentures. And on this ground, the Supreme Court said that this interest expenditure will be allowable to the SSC. And also on the aspect of explanation 3C said that it cannot be, when a retrospective provision is brought in the act, it cannot be presumed to be retrospective even when such language is used if it alters or changes the law as it earlier stood. So when I had in the year 1996, 1997, when I had entered into this transaction, this explanation was not there. Even otherwise, assuming that it is conversion of loan, still a conversion to a fresh loan, when the time I made this transaction, this explanation was not there, and therefore it should not be taken into account. And on the basis of these grounds, the Supreme Court decided in the favor of the SSC. Over to Vipul sir on this.
Yes. Now, it's a good judgment. One need to really again read the explanation 3C. So if I can request Inkle to share explanation 3C, because that is the crux of the entire judgment. Yeah, can I request Inkle to explanation 3C? Now, if I read for the removal of doubt, now this was introduced by Finance Act 2006, an assessment in our case is 96-97, but it was inserted retrospectively. We'll come to the, I think Dinkle already that is issue, but we may go back to the issue later on. But the explanation says, for the removal of doubts, it is hereby declared that a deduction of any sum being interest payable under clause so and so shall be allowed if such interest has been actually paid, and any interest referred to in that clause which has been, now this is the most important part, any interest which has been converted into a loan or borrowing shall not be deemed to have been actually paid. The entire of the issue is whether by issue debenture can I say to have converted my interest liability into a loan liability. So the corollary issue is whether debenture is loan or not. If debenture is loan, then definitely I am within this. I am hit by expression 3C. And Supreme Court, in a way, did not say that this has no retrospective effect. It only said that just by, because in the explanatory memorandum, they use the word just to clarify the doubts or to, they said that may not be the relevant because you see the crux. But that is not the main issue. Assuming it is applicable, Supreme Court decided the issue on merit. So we have to assume that this expression Supreme Court approved that expression 3C may have retrospective effect, but and it decided on the merits of the case. And Supreme Court distinguished the two judgments referred by the department because their department referred to judgments in the Companies Act and other in a tax matter that debenture is nothing but a loan liability. The Supreme Court said distinguished judgment. He said that no, this is a fresh. This is not a continuation. So issue is that whether we are continuing your liability for interest. Correct. Now, if your liability for interest is, let's say, extinguished, correct, and you are under a fresh transaction by issue of debenture. So what Supreme Court is trying to say is that then it is a proper discharge of liability within the meaning of section 43B. Now, I will throw open the issue whether debenture is loan, whether because Supreme Court it seems the Supreme Court did not agree with the department contention that debenture is not a loan. But if one goes to the Companies Act and other commercial concept, maybe the line is blurred. But before I throw open the discussion, two more minor things, which may be very minor thing, but maybe no helpful. Supreme Court also did take into account the fact that, look, there's a bona fide transaction, there was no misuse of provision, which was, as Supreme Court stated, the main crux for bringing 43B. Supreme Court analyzed the legislative history, why 43 was introduced, even why subsequent amendments were produced. Basically, to plug loopholes, person used to take the deduction but did not pay. So in this case, that is not the case, because this is not the case. And the second is that they said that they were lost. This is also an important dimension, I would say, new dimension according to me added. There is no loss to the revenue, because when I claim the deduction of interest and when I issued debenture, the counterparty ICICI Bank had offered the income as business income in the very same year. So Supreme Court did take into account that aspect as well. There is no loss, because when you say your claim reduction and you are issued debenture very same year, the ICICI is offering business income. So I think these are the two factors which which maybe I don't know how far the courts will take into account this aspect as well while deciding 43B. Today, as generally by and large, we just go by strict letter of the law, whether you fall in this and this. But when no bona fide, let's say for example, I'll give you an example. Your PF is due, you make payment. Of course, we have a judgment. Your payment is, you are making payment late. Let's say the PF Act, we have judgments on all these things. But there's a bona fide thing. There was a financial occurrence. Ultimately, I did pay the amount. Now, again, once you consider there was certain leeway with the adjudicating authorities, that even if you might not have, adhere to the strict letter of the law, but if these two aspects which Supreme Court seems to have also considered, that bona fide transaction, no loss of revenue, whether that factors also need to be taken into consideration, and if yes, to what extent, where do you draw the line? So these are the, of course, the issues which are still, I would say, virgin. Now time will tell us how far these factors also may play relevant, significant role in deciding 43B. Now, as I said, I'm throwing open the discussion about debenture law, which is also very interesting, according to the issue, for not only for understanding 43B, but our own, it will help in our expanding our own horizon. Debenture versus loan. I'm throwing open.
Yeah, generally we understand that debenture is an acknowledgement of loan, they say, no? It's a loan only.
Yeah, so department did cite two judgments, and also Companies Act, that under the Companies Act, you have to show debenture liability under the secured loan. I am just some of the things, but I would be happy if some of you can throw further light on this.
And secondly, merely because the ICICI Bank has offered it as business income, but if the provision says that it is not allowable, according to me, that may not hold good, though we have to see Supreme Court has said that. Yeah.
Sharma, see, I'll tell you what happens is that when Supreme Court or any court give reason by considering so many factors, let's say 5 factors. Now, which factor is prominent, which is not prominent, that that the subsequent courts in a law precedent can know, which is arbiter, which is like lower court. Of course, arbiter of Supreme Court is binding, but lower court. So, which are the main reasons, which are something which are only casual remarks, which are not necessary? I think this again propose a very important aspect, because if you see, even not only this, many judgments which today we are going to discuss, when Supreme Court is distinguishing certain judgments cited by some of the parties, they say, okay, the judgment may appear to be saying so, but this is a different context, or they will come to know. We'll discuss it later on. So this again a different law precedent is a different, very interesting line of discussion. We may postpone it, but Sharma, you raise a very pertinent issue. How far this factor of the no loss of revenue would be relevant?
Yeah, Ashok Mehta.
Yes, sir.
Chirag Vadva has raised his hand. Would you like to? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just try and unmute him.
Yeah.
One sec, I'll just try and unmute. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, Chirag, tell.
Yeah. So sorry to bounce in. Over here, the issue was they had issued debentures. Now, there are actually three Supreme Court decisions. One is this Aqua, which talks on issue of debentures. The decision which Supreme Court has distinguished, Gujarat Cryptomet, it was I had issued a loan. And another decision is there, which is 314 ITR 188, in which there was bank guarantee issues. So today something is outstanding. I'm issuing you a bank guarantee, wherein I would say that, I'm giving you a bank guarantee that I'll pay the interest. And that was considered as constructive payment or not. So in Gujarat Cryptomet, wherein it was loan against this, it was said no, the deduction would not be allowable. In bank guarantees case 314 ITR 188, it was again said no, it is not permissible. It is only in this case wherein it is said that, if it is a debenture, yes, it would be allowable. The decision of 314 ITR 188 is not considered. So another factor over here is instead of issuance of debentures, many times even shares are issued. There are few tribunal decisions and which say that, even that is not considered as a proper mode of payment per se. And just one small factor over here which Supreme Court said is, or these are tradable or something like that. According to me, said there was this famous case of Sahara, wherein, non-marketable securities were also considered as, under SCRA. They were also considered under Section 2H of SCRA. So whether that would have any impact or not, don't know. Because let's assume for an company which is under bankruptcy, nobody would be willing to buy their shares. So in that case, what is to be considered? Would that make any distinguishing factor? Because this is one of the primary reasons what they were trying to say, that it is freely tradable.
See, regarding Gujarat Cypromet, which Supreme Court, I did not go in detail as I said, but Supreme Court distinguished the facts were that there was an entry. No, the Gujarat Cypromet, that the SSCI only reversed the entry and said my liability is this. I passed the reversal entry, closure entry, what is square up entry. And then the assets contain, okay, that is good enough for 43B or payment, deemed payment, no entry. And this case, Supreme Court did take into account this. They reproduced that, portion of that Gujarat judgment, and they said it is not applicable to the case. That it is not a case of new entry. It is a case of fresh, totally new, fresh transaction. That's what how the Supreme Court seems to distinguish that Gujarat Cyprus judgment. They say it is far removed from the facts. I'm saying about Gujarat Cyprus thing. Correct? So I agree. So maybe depends upon, as I said, the word, crucial word, because agreement between the SSC and lender was this is in lieu of. The word is very important, in lieu of. Now, what do you mean in lieu of? The Supreme Court interpreted this term as in discharge of. In discharge of liability. In lieu of, in discharge. That is how the Supreme Court seems to have proceeded and held. But yes, the point Mr. Chirag has raised, as I said, some of the judgment Supreme Court has considered now. Ultimately, two aspects, that not only whether debenture is loan liability or not, but whether a particular mode of issuing debenture, a particular transaction through which you issue debenture, particular agreement or arrangement through which you issue debenture, whether that will affect or that will have relevance. It's a lieu of, in discharge of, whatever. And secondly, I think the most important thing you should remember is that, and that I think rightly so, I think that it seems that the distinction has to be made between my statutory liability, as Winkle has pointed out, and my contractual liability. Now, if you are any manner trying to postpone or avoid payment of your statutory liability, then courts are going to be very strict, rightly so. But now in this case, both the Supreme Court and even tribunal stated, look, when the two parties are entering into a contract, and one party, both parties say, okay, this loan is in lieu of, or debenture in lieu of, in discharge of so and so, both parties are happy, both parties are treating that a discharge of loan or interest liability, because the counterparty offered an income or business income. Primarily, this is answer to your query, that it is not the court to rewrite something or to say, no, this is not so, because it's a very, there is again, jurisprudence on interpretation of deeds and documents. As we have got the jurisprudence on interpretation of statutes, there is a separate line of interpretation of deeds and documents. And where they say, even if substance is form, that yes, for substance is important, but you cannot altogether ignore form. Correct? So in this case, when both the parties are treating this transaction in particular manner and acted upon that. So generally, the main purpose of the act is to nobody should get away by taking directly without payment. Now, the other party said, I received the payment. ICI said, I have business income. So what the grievance is? Where are the grievances? I think this is why, I would say a good approach, it's a good ceremony just to answer to your query. Accounting entry, it is a commercial, yes. If it's statutory liability and I may pass any accounting entry, that may not be relevant, binding on the department. Rightly so, that's a precedent on that. Accounting entry is not relevant, but this is a commercial transaction. So this is what I think I would try to reconcile the view of the Supreme Court.
Okay. Yeah, Dinkle, you can proceed.
Now, Mr. Vadwa has got any issue on this? I think I prefer, I know time is, but discussion, because even
Mr. Sinha has also raised hand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. May I speak, sir?
Yeah.
Sir, this is Prakash Sinha from Delhi, sir.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes, sir. Just I was going through the two judgments just we have discussed. In the first judgment, we have discussed that the Supreme Court has gone by the perception here, that without going to the detail and without discussing the detail on the evidence part here. In the second judgment, we are discussing that the Supreme Court has changed our perception towards what is loan here. And we have just understand that the debenture is not a loan here. Then how do we reconcile both the judgments, sir?
Happy to hear you. Welcome back. No, see, it is, we are not commenting on Supreme Court. We are just trying to understand the ratio. We are not here to comment Supreme Court in that way.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to in first judgment, as I said again, if I go back, the only reliance played by Supreme Court is a statement of managing trustee.
Yes.
There is no other evidence considered by the Honorable Supreme Court while deciding the issue. Now that already I had taken place before the lower authorities that has no evidentiary value. Because it's a survey statement and we have got Kadarnath judgment, Supreme Court judgment. So I can understand Supreme Court can take any view. I forget, whatever. Either the judgment, accepting the judgment or distinguishing the judgment, or on facts of this case, the judgment is not relevant. See, either of the three. So this would have helped us to understand the ratio, easily. I'm just putting it that way. I put it that way. And I perceive in the sense, yes, of course, as I said, perception plays nowadays very important. See, we as a practitioner also, we know what is going on, which is, sometimes it is beyond limits, what is happening. I'm not going to especially moral or ethical point of view. Of course, that is very important. Even otherwise, practically, see, if I just try to see myself in a position of a judge, that there is a strong, I know within my thing that this is the wrong bogus, but then am I feel that I'm bound by still the jurisprudence, the rule of law, still the evidence, we have to go through that. So it's a very practical issue. It is not a filmy thing that how far my perception override my requirement of particular case to go for the at least basic minimum evidential value. Now, if you see in Varghese case, Rajiv Samaj, Supreme Court, the tenancy, good old tenancy was transferred. Everybody look at tenancy was exchanged by payment of money, but it was not legal till 2000, right? And Supreme Court did say we may be going on, and department used to say, look, we are transferring tenancy, and SSC said, I have not received any money. It is not possible. And everybody knew that tenancy was being transferred by taking cash. Nobody was transferring tenancy free. Correct? I am talking before 2000. But still, Supreme Court said nothing, fine. We know perception, but we cannot help it. See chapter 20, chapter 28, so judgments on so and so, Varghese case, yes. Immoral property, there is on money. Most of the time on money cash, but ultimately for the Income Tax Act today, as I see it, yes, as a citizen of India, I feel bad. I frown upon this type of thing, and I don't approve of this. I try to, if I possible, I say this purpose should be barred. But if I remember Income Tax Act is to tax income, and that income should be based on some principle of law of income tax. I'm not saying evidentiary value or law of evidence. So, this is the conflict between perception, strong perception, and the evidence before the court. So, Sanyaji, this is the concept. Now, coming to this, second is purely interpretation of law. It is nothing perception. Second case of debenture is not it's a Supreme Court interprets, or rather say, no, debenture is not a loan liability. But I would put it this way, as I mentioned, the larger issues, of course, academic, we can discuss loan and debenture. Now, as I discussed earlier, in the context of 43B, especially in the legislative background, where what is sought to be taxed and why it's sought to be taxed or why it's sought to be disallowed. In that context, if both the parties agreed it is a discharge of loan, then department would very slow to intervene. Unless, of course, there is some strong fishy thing. Because here, who is the agreed party, who should have been agreed party, the lender, whose interest was not being paid. And he said, yes, interest is paid, I'm offering business income. So I think, see, maybe in that context, Supreme Court was more, liberal in the sense that, okay, they said, as I said, there are so many, as I said, as you heard the judgment, 3-4 factors. Now, which judgment or was more stronger in the mind of Honorable Supreme Court, nobody will know. But these are the common factors ultimately which led to the Honorable Supreme Court to say that 43B conditions are fulfilled.
Okay.
See, I'll tell you different. I'm sorry. See, other way around. So let's say I'm a judge, and some SSC who I know is very genuine, very, he was prevented from very genuine reasons, but the law does not permit to give any relief. Correct? Let's say deadlines are one. There are many things. The law is very strict. And as a judge, I know that this, is very genuine case. Now, sometimes, then I also am helpless because I go by the law. I mean, in bogus things, so many things are maybe one loan may be genuine, or person might have received loan genuinely and the intermediary might have created bogus things. Now, once if a decision is that they are all bogus, 99% might have created bogus things, but 1% maybe take for him, somebody else, he obtained this bogus loan for somebody else, and that somebody else paid the mischief and did. Same thing, bogus purchase. I say bogus purchase. Many people directly wanted bill, said bogus purchase, but I genuinely, agent gave me, told me, yes, I'll supply you goods, and there is a bill. So I said, okay, fine, bill is there. So I accepted it. I really did not know this is really bogus transaction. So, and as you understand, it's very difficult for any person, forget out any judge, to know which case is genuine, which case is not genuine. But then, sometimes even genuine case get suffer because of this. So it's both the sides.
Yes, very interesting and educative discussion. Friends, Vipul bhai, you are asking, and Dinkle, this for you also. So few Vipul bhai was asking in this group how deep you should go. So a few members have already messaged me. They said we would like to have midway. So I will request the uncle may be brief in the facts because
yes, Sharma
members want that we can discuss maximum judgment as far as possible.
Okay, I'll take note of that.
Yeah,
Sharma
please.
Yeah,
please.
So I'll go ahead with the third judgment, Sharma ji.
Yeah.
Sorry. The third judgment is again a judgment of the Supreme Court in the case of Reliance Energy Limited. This was pertaining to assessment year 2-3, where I am in the business of generation of power, and I'm also dealing in purchase of distribution of power. So I was eligible for deduction under 80IA. Now, it appears from the judgment, the facts are that apart from the business income that I'm earning, I also had income from other sources. The assessing officer's point for rejecting me deduction or stating that my deduction is allowable only to the extent of business income was that as per 80IA, only the income derived from the industrial undertaking or the manufacturing undertaking is to be allowed to me. And also he strangely refers to section 80AB, which says that as per section 80AB, actual deduction allowable should be to the extent of the business income. Now, he says income from other sources should not be included while you are calculating the gross total income and deduction claimed against such gross total income vis-a-vis the income from other sources is not acceptable. I went before the CIT appeals. CIT appeal held it in my favor, saying my submission before the CIT appeal was that the deduction under a particular section is permissible only against income under that particular head. That observation of the assessing officer is erroneous. You have to see vis-a-vis these deductions could be vis-a-vis various incomes, and it has to be quantified as provided in section 80IA, and accordingly 80AB is only with respect to quantification of deduction on the basis of net income. CIT appeal considered it and said that it is allowable in my favor. And then department went before the High Court. Before the High Court, the order of the High Court was very cryptic, because there was already an order of the High Court in assessee's own case for assessment year 1-2. In 1-2, they had relied on two important judgments, that is Tridos Laboratories and SK-NIT, which were on the same issue of ATIA. However, these judgments, actually, one of the judgment was whether the brought forward losses can be set off against the eligible business deduction, and the other judgment was regarding ATI. The High Court considered both these judgments and said that because there is already a decision in your favor in assessment year 1-2 where these judgments were considered, so we are deciding in your favor. Then department again went in appeal before the Supreme Court. Before the Supreme Court, again they argued that ATAB allows only deduction to the extent of that particular income source and not with respect to any other income. So the phrase derived from has to be considered to be restricted only to the profits and gains from the eligible business. My submissions before the Supreme Court was against the same, that there is no indication in ATIA that it has to be restricted to the business income. Supreme Court considered this arguments and said that yes, there is no reference in section ATIA that it has to be restricted to the extent of business income, and income from other sources should also be considered for the purpose of eligibility of deduction under ATIA. ATAB has nothing to do with this part. Firstly, the computation has to be done under ATIA, and in ATAB it has to be allowed to the extent of gross total income. My gross total income includes income from other sources, and while I am calculating as in taking benefit of section ATIA, it should be to the extent of gross total income, which also includes income from other sources. So with this, I pass it on to Vipul sir for his views.
I think nothing. This interplay between ATAB and ATIA, as I said, there are larger issues. Honorable Supreme Court touch upon things, but it's maybe some appropriate occasion. If one read the history of ATAB, it's very interesting and a little bit quite complicated, heavy. But fortunately, in this case, Supreme Court did not go touch that core aspects. And but as I said, the facts are very scanty. Even I tried to go to the High Court judgments and the tribunal judgment, but I could not find further facts about how actually the amount was allowed by the EO. But the principle is this, that while computing ATIA, you are not guided by ATAB or whatever. It is a standalone section. Maybe ATAB is after it comes into play after you firstly compute your deduction available under ATIA. So I think that the Supreme Court confirmed the tribunal and High Court decision.
Sharma ji should. Sharma ji.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can go to next.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next is the decision of the Bombay High Court that may be useful to a lot of participants here, considering the trend of writ petitions filed before various high courts challenging the assessment orders or the interim orders passed under the National Faceless Assessment Scheme. Now, pursuant to the National Faceless Assessment Scheme that had come, there are three important aspects that are there in this judgment. First is whether section 144B, that is the newly introduced section where the procedure has been laid down with respect to how the assessment has to be conducted under the faceless scheme, whether that procedure makes differentiation between the eligible assessee under 144C and a normal assessee for whom the orders are passed under 143.3. That is one aspect of the matter. Second is if certain procedure is not followed that has been provided in the section 144B, what would be the consequences or implication of that procedure not being followed in the light of subsection 9 of section 144B. Third is how important the the provision for providing a personal hearing has to be taken into account when the assessee specifically requests for it, because there's a discretion given to the department whether to accept that request or to reject that request. So in the light of this, the limited facts that I'll point out is that I had my case was selected for scrutiny. There was after various show cause notices were issued, there was a final show cause notice which was issued proposing that why your assessment should not be completed as per the draft assessment order. There were additions running into thousands of crores of rupees which the AO was proposing to make, which are very arbitrary reasons given by him for making the additions. I am not going into the facts of each of the additions considering the limited time involved. But in response to the show cause notice, I requested for a adjournment and I requested time up to 9th April that you will be able to see on the slide. And also I requested for a personal hearing through video conferencing. Later on, when I had requested for a time up to 9th April, in the meantime, whatever details or objections that I could file in response to the show cause notice, I also filed that. However, without considering either accepting or rejecting my adjournment application, without considering either accepting or rejecting my personal hearing application, without considering the submissions that are filed in response to the show cause notice, the AO straight away went ahead and passed the order under section 144C. Now, in response against this order passed, that is the draft order under 144C, I immediately approached the High Court in the writ saying that this order is not sustainable because I was not provided sufficient opportunity and there's a breach of the principle of natural justice because a personal hearing opportunity was also not provided to me. Considering the complexity of the facts involved, I needed, it was required that it would be better and effective presentation if I give my oral submissions also. The High Court laid down the entire procedure as to how the assessment has to be conducted, that is provided in section 144B. So the argument of the assessee was threefold, that first, because of this, my opportunity of hearing is lost because the assessing officer has not followed the procedure under the Act. Secondly, the department's argument was that I will get time to again make my case before the DRP and again when a final assessment order is passed. So assessee is not will get an opportunity later to give its submission or give a personal hearing opportunity will be given at a later stage. So that was their argument before the High Court. Department's argument, I said that just because an opportunity is available to me at a later stage, when specifically in the Act there is a procedure provided under, if you can see under 144B77, where they've said that after, if there's an order prejudicial, a show cause notice will be issued. I have to respond to it, and in turn I can also request for a personal hearing. If that procedure is itself provided in the Act, then the assessing officer is bound to provide me that opportunity. Either he may accept, reject, give his reasons for rejection, but he has to do so. If he doesn't do so, then he is not following the procedure. And also the High Court said that there is no distinction made between an eligible assessee and an assessee when the request for personal hearing comes into picture. Considering the limited time available, I am not going through the relevant clauses in this section so as to point out what is the procedure and at what stage the eligible, requirement specific to an eligible assessee starts and up to which it is same for all the assessees. So the High Court ultimately, I relied on various judgments of various High Courts and also one or two judgments of the Supreme Court to point out how important a personal hearing opportunity to the assessee is, and if a provision is provided in the section itself, then what is the consequence if the concerned officer does not provide the opportunity. So High Court considered all these arguments of mine. It said that yes, up to the point of providing the personal hearing to the assessee. There is no distinction between an eligible assessee and a normal assessee to whom 144C is not applicable. It also pointed out what is the importance of personal hearing in this concern. And lastly, the High Court has made two important observations. It says that if assessment is not made in accordance with 144(9), then the assessment will be non-est, that is provided in the section itself. So with respect to that, it says that there is a telling or pronounced rigor to follow the procedure under 144B, or else the assessment would be non-est. So when the hearing has been envisioned and incorporated, it is important to observe the principles of natural justice. The petitioner will be losing an opportunity so as to available to it under section 144B(7), and when the assessee approaches with show cause notice, the request made by the assessee would have to be taken into account, and it would not be proper, looking at the procedure, prescribed procedure with strong undercurrents, to having on the hearing after request after the notice to say that the petitioner would have an opportunity pursuant to 144C, and the draft assessment order was considered as unsustainable, and it also said that it is open to the authorities to carry on whatever procedure is now available to them under the law. With this background, I pass it over to Vipul sir again for his views.
The important thing is that what was the prayer of the assessee? Now, the prayer of the assessee was to get an opportunity, set aside. Basically, if you see the prayer of the assessee wants to get this procedure not followed, so I would deprive from properly representing my case. So let it set aside effectively. So that is very important. Why? Because if you see High Court had at para 66, I suppose, or para 66, 65 of the judgment, did just refer, I think, just refer to the fact that this provision says that if the department does not follow the procedure, the Act itself says, the scheme itself says, 144B(9), that if the procedure not followed, then assessment will be non-est. This fact of provision has been recorded by the High Court, followed by one sentence, quote, there is a telling pronounced rigor to follow the procedure under section 144B, comma, list the assessment would be non-est. Now, after that, High Court set aside that is unsustainable, then they are giving the liberty to department to follow the procedure and continue the assessment. Now, my view is this. Of course, it is nature. Now, the principle of nature justice, there are basic principles which are there, which are deemed to be there in any enactment, even though there is no specific provision, unless specifically excluded. So, this giving proper opportunity and holding order, bedding law, if an order is passed without a proper opportunity is one fundamental principle otherwise also. But in that case also, we have to make two distinctions. See, two lines of distinction. That one view by the Supreme Court has been that if there is a breach of the principle of nature justice, the procedure breach, then the only remedy is to remedy the breach and restore the position back to the stage at which the breach occurred, with an opportunity to the party, whatever the breach occurred, to remedy the breach. So that's what it seems to have been done in this case. That okay, if you think that there is no proper opportunity given, then okay, we are sending back to better to that. That is one aspect. But at the same time, there are other judgments of Supreme Court, like say Kishan and Chelaram, that if an addition is made without, let's say in that case, without confronting the relevant material on the basis of which the addition was made to the assessee, then addition is not sustainable at all. So there are two things. One is you quash the addition, you delete the addition. Other is to restore back the matter back to the stage at which the breach occurred. So one has to be very careful what relief one is seeking. Because here, as I said, the SSC simply wanted matter to go back so that it can have proper opportunity of being heard. But take a case where you are challenging the addition also. Of course, read is a different thing, and read whether so read you can under Article 226 whether you can challenge merits of the addition. Let me order that let that, again, I said there is an important issue, but we don't have much time to go into that today. Under 226, how far we can go. But so if I am seeking, let's say in this case, for example, let's say I'm just hypothetically, putting it before everybody. Suppose I would not have filed writ. Suppose I would have gone in appeal, CIT appeal. And in CIT appeal, I said, look, assuming of course all my submissions are there, and which AO is not considered. So could I have said that, look, I am challenging the addition, look at the evidences before the AO, look at the evidences brought by AO in defense of his action, weigh that, analyze both the things, and see whether the addition is sustainable or not. And we have got plenty of judgments. We need to take it, okay, the adjudicating authority will see whether the action of addition, how far it is supported by the evidence, by the department, how far they have distinguished the SSC's evidences, how they have dealt with. Now, on merit, I could have very well, I mean, I'm just putting a question where I would have, one option would have been I would have succeeded in CIT appeal. I saying that, okay, now we come to second aspect. This is one aspect. What you are challenging, we must be very careful. What second aspect. One more dimension is that what is the meaning of non-est? I think that's the crux of the issue, which I think the courts now what has happened, rightly or wrongly, in all the petitions or petitions across India, or I mean more than 500 or whatever first one. So that's what we are fearing. I think some of the discussion that if in one case, or I think many of the cases, the Honorable High Court have set aside the assessment. So, but where is the case? Is there any scope for arguing one step further? Okay, my lord, I don't want set aside. I want my lord to hold that assessment is quash. I mean, non-est. What is non-est? Non-est means there are two things. It is non in existence. If not in existence, if you hold it non in existence, then can you still restore back the matter back to the AO to continue the proceeding and free travel? That is why I think one aspect which I hope and I still hope, but that sometimes some court will consider. One thing. Second thing, which is also quite important when you choose any remedy, that whether your SSC, your professional opportunity is good, but the case of your SSC becomes worse or better by pursuing a particular remedy. Now, in such type of case, what happens? Suppose you would not have gone in writ. I am not telling on this. I am very generally. I am not about this. I cannot comment why these SSC went. That is their personal thing. We are not commenting. As I said, suppose I would have gone in CIT appeal, at least I would have succeeded. But here, what happens? It may happen. I don't know. There are time limits still available, whatever. You are giving chance to the assessing officer to improve his case. So whatever evidences which were there till the assessment over passed, in normal course, your legality of the addition could have been adjudicated on basis of that evidence. Now, AO has got a chance to not only add evidence, but also to improve evidence and also distinguish the evidences placed by the SSC. So I think these are the aspects which one needs to be very carefully keep in mind while taking course of action. That's what I would like to. Of course, this I think, as I said, this issue is very. You can discuss for 15 minutes, but as I said, for sake of time, I'll rest here because whether it will go and on, it's a very important issue. But I think I should rest here. I'll invite suggestion or discussion from others.
Yeah, if there is no question, we can proceed to next judgment.
Somebody had raised the hand.
Yeah. Ashok, can you unmute him?
Yeah, I'll just unmute him.
Somebody else?
May I ask one question, sir?
Yeah.
We are not asked, we are discussing. We are not question and answer. We are sharing our views.
Achha, sir. Okay, sir. Just one point of wondering here, but you have also rightly raised the issue that the moment that this type of assessment order are being challenged through a writ petition in a court here, the courts are setting aside this order and it is getting restored with the AO. So the issue is rising from where the AO will start, whether the AO will start afresh or whether the AO will start from where he has not given the opportunity here. First question, sir. And second question, the issue is that if we say that assessment order has been quashed, so whether assessment order has been quashed, whether there will be no further assessment, or the department will be a further liberty to make the assessment given the following the procedure of the faceless assessment.
But really, what I read is that in this case, for example, the fine. I'm just saying after discussing these whatever we have discussed, the Honorable Court in last para, only one para, the remedy, the final part is that foregoing discussion leads to that improved draft assessment order is unsustainable. Correct? The word is unsustainable. Full stop. The petition is allowed in terms of the prayer clause A, leaving it open to the authorities to carry forward the process in accordance with Section 144B of the Act by giving opportunity of hearing to the petitioner.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yeah.
So it is open. Now, you say at what stage?
Yeah.
Now, see, suppose you have a normal course, forget 140, normal course, assessing officer issues a show cause notice. I want to make such addition. Correct? And you give a reply. You give a reply. Now, he may accept a different thing, but he may also, is it a stop? Is it a stop from giving you one more notice? And now, this is also a fresh reason. This is also the additional thing. I'm just saying, within the time allowed, of course, subject to time allowed, or he may add some more points of argument, or he may distinguish your today in this case, for example, AO had not even dealt with the submission of the SSECs. So at this stage, suppose you would have filed an appeal, so your chance of succeeding would be better, because you can say, look how the addition is made. Now, CIT appeal normal, he has no power to set aside. That's appellate authority. CIT cannot say, now I'll give one opportunity. CIT cannot give one more opportunity to the normally, correct? Of course, yeah. So then CIT would have adjudicated the issue on the basis of the material and whether the addition made is sustainable, what evidences, what considerations were considered by the AO and what SSC. So I'm that content. Now here, I don't think any specific provision is there to stop assessing officer to give further show cause notice that means should be addition made. If you strictly go to 144 procedure, it appears that after draft assessing order, you give submission, goes back to the officer. You can still make addition, though whether he can put into new item of addition, I don't think so. Because one draft assessment file, then assuming he can always reject your submission and go according to draft assessment order, but he cannot go beyond the draft assessment order, which I would like to read that position. Correct? So here we are talking about two things. One is the addition proposed itself. So AO is getting second opportunity to improve upon his proposed addition. Second thing, something more beyond the draft assessment order. But let's not go to the second aspect of something going beyond the draft assessment order in the subsequent opportunity given to AO, because we don't have time to decide. We don't to do so. But yes, according to me, I would like to read, he cannot, suppose you are not given proper opportunity after issuing draft assessment order, then yes, but there are some cases which are seen that assessment order are passed even without issuing draft assessment order. Now, suppose the Honorable Court said, okay, now you issue draft assessment order. At that stage, yes, he can go, any item.
Yeah, Mr. Kothari, can you unmute?
I've unmuted. I have two questions. One is on that 144B9. Now, all these assessees are rushing to high courts through writ petitions. But instead of writ petition, if the appeal is filed before the CIT appeal, and irrespective of CIT appeal, considering the case on merits, can one say that CC 144B9 says that if certain procedure is not followed, or say draft order is not issued, in such a case, the assessment is bad in law, because assessment order is non-issue, Now see, now this draft order concept has come in this faceless assessment only from last year. These concepts were already there in 144C. And 144C, one says that at the first instance, the AO should give you the draft order. And at the first, even interpreting that at the first instance, the courts have held that if that draft order was not passed, then the assessment is not sustainable. Now here, even we have a better case in 144B9. It is not saying at the first instance. It says that if the procedure is not followed, then the order is non-nest. So my first question is that when we go to the CIT appeal, can we say forget the merits? Now 144B9 says that if the procedure is not followed, then the assessment is non-nest. So treat this order as bad in law and quash the order. That is first question. The second question is that the procedure says that if there is any variation in my income or my liability, then the draft order is supposed to be given. Now, supposing that supposing there are no additions proposed, but there is some variation in my liability because some TDS credit is not supposed to be granted, So if draft order is not given, and then can I say that because certain TDS credit is not given, so therefore it is affecting my liability? Even for that also the draft order is given. Since draft order is not given, so because of this 144B9, the order is non-nest, and therefore this is to be held as bad in law. These are the two questions.
No, of course, all issues are open to be agitated before the appellate authority. You can challenge, of course, definitely that order is non-nest. Whatever meaning, whatever the interpretation court may put, what is the significance or implication? First of all, what is the meaning of non-nest and what are the consequences in the context of 144B? You can certainly take the ground that assessment is bad in law, non-nest, whatever, without judicial, whatever you can call it in your normal appeal.
But what will be the chances of such an argument that CIT appeal accepting, relying on the 144B judgment?
See, I cannot foresee because it's a new thing. If I have to foresee from the department point of view, I don't know. But personally, I believe it's a good case. Personally, I believe it's a good case because when you are making a specific provision, I can understand nature justice normally, but a specific provision, we say non-nest, then I think the hands of the CIT would be quite tied, I would that way, to do otherwise. So you got a strong case.
So then the better is to go to CIT appeal rather than rushing for writs, right?
That's what I have been sorry to say, but I've been advising many of my clients. Even let us, of course, little bit digress.
I also taken several positions like this, which is why I am just reconfirming your way with you also.
No, fine. We are sharing the view. I'm not
yes.
And just to digress a little bit, what will happen to even 140 writ petition to support tomorrow ordinance comes? I know. So again, Shaban, if I can digress a little bit, 2 minutes. No.
Yeah.
Because same aspect are there. Let's say 148. Whatever today we are challenging that after 1 April. Now, suppose I'm just again putting forward to everybody. You without protest under prejudice, you file return, ask for reasons. Reasons you put objection will be of course rejected, and then you file writ challenging both jurisdiction, which everybody challenging, as well as the merits of the reason for recorded, that is objection. So what happens? Assuming of you the main assessment succeed on the main point, you can already my merits because otherwise you succeed, and what happens? They have not followed procedure. But the new scheme of 148 bit, okay, whatever time limit permitted, okay, you whatever. So we don't know how High Court would say. Once you quash 148, there is nothing prevent department to suppose there is a procedure illegality. Nothing prevent department to issue fresh 148, of course, subject to fulfillment of parameters of the condition of section, whatever section. So again, this is similar to what we have been saying, that sometimes we have to be very careful why you are going, for what you are going. Whatever the professional, because I see this I learned very hard way. My very early days or months of practice, where I very challenged 148 on some procedure thing before CIT appeal. Now the unfortunate time limit for issuing fresh notice was still 148 was still over. My hearing took place in I think first week of March. CIT accepted the thing, but immediately director AO issued me 148 notice. And then I learned the lesson. These are the practice. That you should be very careful. Anyway, we are a larger issue. We will not go there. But I think Dinkle needs to point out something. Dinkle, you want to point out something?
Mr. Kothari, with respect to your question regarding the TDS, The provision
Yes.
says that any variation prejudicial to the interest of the assessee. So that will include even non-granting of TDS also. So
Yes, so
should be
it is a variation in the income or the liability, right? So then
No, no. Just variation.
if the TDS credit is not given, say that there is no draft order issued, right? And in the final order there is a less grant of TDS credit, right? So in that case, I can say that there is a variation in my liability. For that, the draft order was not issued, and therefore this procedure was not followed, and therefore because of the 144B9, this order is non-necessary. I can take that argument as well, right, Dinkle?
Yes, yes, because the word it's not used income. It's just said that any variation prejudicial to the assessee.
So variation means not non-grant or short grant of TDS as well,
Yeah.
no?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So even wherever there is short grant of TDS, one can say that the draft, even if the income is accepted, but then we have to say that this procedure was not followed because there is a variation, and therefore this is non-nest order, right?
No,
Yeah, it
but
appears.
can we say like that? It's not a curable defect. Vipul, by your views, please. According to me, mere non-grant of that can be done afterwards also. So merely because non-grant of TDS full credit, can you say it is non-est?
Sharmaji, if that is only, I'm sorry.
Yeah, please. Vipul bhai.
No, somebody was saying.
No, I only asked you.
No, I thought somebody.
Mahindra Bhai is.
Somebody else.
Mahindra bhai, you want to say? Hello.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharma ji.
Yeah.
Please. I just wanted to share my little practical problems what Mr. Kothari has raised. I also have a feeling that yes, if we directly, instead of going to High Court for by way of a writ, if Section 9 is not followed, we should be able to go through the route of the commissioner appeal. This is an alternate remedy available. Nevertheless, the practical problems what we may face is the appeal, CIT appeals will take some time, its own course. But in the meantime, the tax collection of the 20% and all those problems would be there if it's a high pitch assessment. That is one. Secondly, I don't know whether the commissioner appeal would take this jurisdictional route that yes, the order can be held non-est, because whether the commissioner really would be that bold and he would be so judicious. And as far as the TDS credit not granted, I think, why it cannot be held that yes, if a correct assessment, including the tax liability, assessment would have been done, the tax liability, while determining the tax liability, if the credit is not given, definitely a route of 154 is otherwise available. And if it is appearing later on in 26 years, also that needs to be rectified as per the provisions of subsection 14 of 155. So that route is otherwise available, even if you don't go to the court or CIT appeal. I think that's all.
That is what we are discussing.
As far as the 20% is concerned, Mahindra bhai, how can department collect a demand in respect of an order which is non-est, because there is some order for which the draft order was not passed,
So I mean, still the order is not held to be non-est till the appeal is pending, right? We have made an application by way of an appeal to the commissioner appeal, which is pending still. That is it non-est or est?
In stay application, I can mention, see, everything is available on my portal, and no show cause notice was issued, no draft order was given. So this is there. So now point is, there is definitely, let the CIT appeal decide, but there is clearly a prima facie case that this is a non-est order. And how can demand pursuant to non-est order be collected, no?
Whether it is prima facie non-est or not, that needs to be decided by the commissioner appeal, right, Mr. Kothari? So till that is decided, they may
he has to not decide prima facie. He has to decide substantively. Prima facie, it is to be decided in the stay proceedings, no?
Anyway, I think Mahindra bhai, Mr. Kothari, I see what she adjusting my sharing view. What Mahindra bhai says, I concur, because today you may say strongly you're non-est, but today, tomorrow, even in writ petition, for example, today, in some other court, they say, okay, you are calling this as a reason for calling the order non-est were minor procedure, breach of procedure. We don't consider that as a relevant breach or significant breach to call the entire proceeding non-est. I mean, there are so many Supreme Court judgments. We said that, okay, I will come to, today only we will be discussing on the judgment that each and every error of procedure did not vitiated the entire proceeding. Correct? So I will not be surprised if some even forget section 9 says, yeah, non-est, but that not every breach or every breach we point out, or every small violation of procedure which we point out will be regarded by court as even falling within subsection 9 non-est. So as Mahendra Bhai said, it is it's to be decided by CIT, and CIT will be very slow. And Mahendra Bhai was of course very bold enough to say not possible, but I would say entire time in that way. But Mahendra Bhai, so and Mr. Kothari, so via media, which are always alternative, because so what happens practically, I'm saying now professionally.
Why you said I was bold enough for what? I missed that sentence of yours.
I said that you were bold enough to say that GIW may not be bold enough to decide this.
No, that's practically what is happening. What we are
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, I agree.
Yes.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I only said I a bit more cautious in saying that hands are tied.
Yeah, okay.
No, but I'll tell you one thing. So that is why.
Ashok Sharma साहब उतना recording delete कर देना मेरा.
Okay.
No, so issue is this, Mahendra Bhai and Mr. Kothari. See, today situations come, and believe me, today figure out CA, the clients are telling directly that read कर लो मैं उसने किया है. अरे I बोला no, but is it like a जादुई छड़ी, magic wand? My friend has done, my neighbor has done, my relative has done. You आप क्यों नहीं करते हो? CA come to me, sir, क्या करेगा? I advise them, okay, in your case, no, he wants to go for it. Okay, let them go to anybody, fine. He wants, because उसने इसको पेपर में आता है, उसमें आता है, everybody say happy. No, that reminds me very peculiar issue faced by a doctor. Suppose you have got a small cold, normal cold. If you go to a good doctor, you say, don't require anything, don't do anything, just within 2-3 days it will go over. Of course, I'm not on COVID time, okay? I am on COVID time. But other doctors say, then you put injection, you give vitamin, whatever injection. Then the patient says, oh, ये doctor अच्छा है, सुई डाला. And this is a practical thing which is happening in especially slum area. My entire family doctor, they said, they are happy with doctor सुई डालता है. ये doctor अच्छा हमको सुई देता है, हमको अच्छा लगता है. वो doctor बोला कुछ भी नहीं है, नहीं. So these are the things. So sometimes pressure from the client or the CA, please, why you are doing, otherwise go to somebody else, because people are filing writ by to and fro. Anyway, that's of course that's a practical call one has to take. But coming to this raised by Mr. Kothari, then what happens, which I advise already, okay, recovery is the only issue. Then what happens, you do whatever, immediately write letter for rectification, pointing out the fallacy. You also write letter to CIT appeal. I think it is possible some way that I won't stay and hearing, and also put your generally 226 applicant for stay. Now, as soon as you get negative result or not, then you file writ. And in writ, of course, of course, whether you can challenge assessment. I am seeing many people have challenged assessment even after filing appeal. Correct? By saying that I'll withdraw the appeal for High Court because this is really breach of natural justice, and I'll withdraw appeal because I don't have a remedy. And rightly or wrongly, High Court has accepted. One or two cases, some did not accept some case. But anyway, even if you don't challenge assessment, you also challenge stay or the rejection order, recovery proceeding. You can definitely, the fact that it's non-est, prima facie or ex facie, whatever you call it, may be a strong ground for the High Court to grant you complete stay, not even 20%. So I'm just
and secondly, Vipul bhai, on the 144C, when there is a provision for draft order from 2009, there are several decisions, including the Bombay High Court decision.
Yeah.
Is that if you do not pass a draft order, the assessment is bad in law, So those precedents are available, and as per 1914, if the High Court order is also not followed, still that much demand cannot be recovered. So even we have a position as per 1914 also, for the stay of demand.
Correct.
Okay. Now coming back to the one second. Hello. I think we will discuss one thing only, because TDS. I think we are giving whether that's a correct message. Merely because non-granting of full credit of TDS, whether it can be non-est. According to me, it cannot be, as Mahendra Bhai said, it is a matter of rectification. It's a curable. So merely because of non-grant of TDS, it will not be. I would like to have the views of
difficult,
Vipul bhai.
difficult. You are right, Harmaji. I agree with you. Because it may be difficult because see, pendulum like that. When courts be little bit liberal and so many people take advantage, and pendulum is like a other side. When court realize that kya ho raha hai, ye sab, going too far.
I think with this we can move.
Maji, Mr. Soni wants to speak. He's put in the chat box.
Just 1 minute, then yeah. Acha. Yeah, just give me 1 or 2 minutes and then we can proceed. Yeah, Ashok. Hello. Acha, he has a question. 1 sec. Sir, in draft order, only up to income stage is passed. What he wants to say? The only major issue that is okay. Can at CIT appeal SSC pray for order to be considered as non-est? That is what we have discussed now, no?
Yeah, already discussed.
Yeah. So, Dinkle, yes, now you can proceed.
Yes,
Hello. Yeah.
So the next judgment is the judgment of Karnataka High Court in the case of Nandi Steels.
Sharmaji, may I just intervene? Sorry, Dinkle. Sorry, Dinkle and Sharmaji. Nandi still may require some time. It's very important because go to concepts, conceptual issues. So I want guidance from Sharmaji and his team. You want to take other judgment first, or you want to that break for? I think somebody want to speak.
I think okay.
Whatever, I'm leaving up to you. I'm ready because we are racing against the time. So this thing, I think even this assessment also, as I said, we have to rush so many interesting issues, but Nandi still may require some time to understand the basic concept.
Okay, then we can discuss in some other time in the.
Or we can refer it. Let us finish other 2-3 judgments at least. I don't know the time permitting, because I think you are in a break and you have got some 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, Chirag, you are there.
Yeah, so we give justice to them. He has prepared so hard.
Yeah, Ashok. Ashok, can you please unmute Chirag Wadhwa? Hello. Chirag, Ashok. Ashok Mehta.
Yeah, hello. Yes, sir. Got the access.
Just you can just raise the issue since you have prepared for it. Maybe 2-3 minutes if you can.
Sir, rather I would insist if Vipul sir shares his wisdom on the decisions. I prepared, that is fine, so I can share the soft copy with you all. That would be fine, but let him continue that.
Mr. Wadhwa, I have no issue, but I would, somebody prepared, so I think not fair.
No, sir, I'll share the soft copy. That is fine, sir.
And you can, within few minutes, whatever.
Yeah, 2-3 minutes, you can just give what is the issue we wanted to discuss. Regarding accounting entries. Just 2-3 minutes, you can just refer what is the decision.
So, really feeling very bad taking time away from Vipul, sir.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
The concept which was trying to be thought across was on accounting or tax principles, various principles laid down by judicial precedents over here. So the first thing which was thought to be discussed today was accounting entries, the relevance of accounting entries under income tax. So the landmark decision of Kedarnath Jute is the mother decision in this case, which states that, irrespective of whether you have claimed a deduction in your books of accounts or not, that would not impact your, eligibility for claiming deductions under income tax. Now, the decision per se straight away says that, even if something is not being claimed in your books of accounts, the same can be claimed in case of income tax. So one of the, technically, if you see, there's this concept of there's no estoppel against the law. If under the law you're permitted to do something, you can do that irrespective of, whether you have done it earlier, you have not done it earlier, you have claimed over there. So just with respect to this Kedarnath, I would Kedarnath decision. I'll just provide you the citation. It is Kedarnath Jute Manufacturing Company Limited versus CIT, 82 ITR 363 by Supreme Court. This talks specifically about the deduction aspect. There are various Supreme Court decisions. specifically which say that entries in your books of accounts do not touch across or do not impact the taxability or the deduction availability under the Income Tax Act. I'm just naming down these few decisions. One is Kedarnath, which I just mentioned. Another one is Tuticorin Alkaline Chemicals and Fertilizers Limited, citation being 227 ITR 172. Another is Satluj Cotton Mills Limited, citation being 116 ITR 1. And the last, another one being United Commercial Bank, which is 240 ITR 355. Along with this, there is a decision of Taparia Tools, which is also important, which says that, if I have followed some particular method in my books of accounts for claiming deduction, instead of claiming 100 rupees in year one, I'm claiming 20 rupees per year for 5 years. In my income tax return, I can again claim that 100 rupees in year one itself. So basically the entire essence over here was that your accounting entries do not impact the taxability under Income Tax Act. This is said and done. There are various aspects to it, especially if you consider this thing is also being supported by explanation 1 to section 5. Although it is specifically for non-residents, if you read explanation 1 to section 5, it also supports that whatever thing is being done in the balance sheet would not have relevance with respect to the taxability. Of course, that was for non-residents. Just one or two food for thought which I would like to leave across over here in this short time is what would be the impact on ICDS? Because specifically if you see this is a topic by itself, whether ICDS what has come or rather section 145 what has come, would that change things across? One view ideally which says is taxability is under section 4 and 5, that has to be followed. ICDS is secondary, section 145 method of accounting is secondary, it cannot overrule. But that is a food for thought which can be left across. I would now think across. Vipul sir might continue with his session.
Okay. Thank you.
Very interesting discussion by Mr. Vajwa. I think there also are many issues, very interesting issues, but I think with Sharmaji, they're looking at the somebody. What is your time?
No,
time
it's at 12:45. 10 minutes again. We can extend with the members are with the request to members if they can bear with for 10 more minutes. So we can go up to 12:55.
No, so
25.
Whatever convenient to.
Yeah.
But, so with decisions now.
As you said, Nandi.
Should I take Nandi still?
Yeah. No, then better to discuss other judgment.
So, sir, can we just take up these decisions of Vedanta, sir, and after that we can go to Nandi still?
Vedanta also will take. Okay, chalo. Whatever, Sharmaji, whatever you say. Both
Vedanta. You may take Vedanta. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Dinkle. Yeah.
Dinkle.
Yeah. So this is the judgment of the Madras High Court, where a writ petition was filed challenging the 148 notice and the order disposing objections. As everybody is aware that Vedanta basically is an Anil Agarwal company. Earlier, there was a Sterlite Industries Limited, which in turn got merged into Sesa Goa. Sesa Goa was renamed as Sesa Sterlite Limited, and Sesa Sterlite Limited later on got merged into Vedanta, and now it is renamed as Vedanta. So the chronology of events is there on the slide. Sterlite Industries India Limited is in existence since 1965. For assessment year 8-9, it had filed its return of income in September 2008. At that time, there was no amalgamation, merger or any of it. Subsequent to that, after 3-4 years, they went ahead and assessment year is 8-9. So in May 2013 and July 2013, there were orders of the respective high courts, that is Bombay High Court and Madras High Court, approving the scheme of amalgamation, and effective from 17th August 2013, Sterlite Industries India Limited got merged with Sesa Goa. Now, somewhere in the facts, before the High Court in the order, it is stated that Sterlite Industries India was renamed as Sesa Goa, and it was later renamed as Sesa Sterlite Limited. However, from the media reports, it appears that these two entities merged and Sesa Sterlite was formed, or probably Sterlite Industries merged into Sesa Goa, and later on it was renamed as Sesa Sterlite. But the point is that before the 148 notice was issued, the entity that was in existence, or the name that was in existence, was Sesa Sterlite Limited. In September 2013, I informed the concerned assessing officer that there has been a merger with effective from so and so date. So kindly take that on record. Now, after 2 years, a 148 notice was issued. Now it is issued in the name of some name, I call it quote unquote name, because there is no such entity existing. It is neither an old entity, it is neither a intermediary merged entity, or it is neither a final entity that is existing as on the date of issue of notice. The name of the company on which the notice was addressed, or rather issued, was Sesa Sterlite Industries Limited. There was no such company existing in this name when the notice was issued. Subsequent to the issue of notice, the company Sesa Goa Limited, that is Sesa Sterlite Limited, was merged into Vedanta. Now, with this background, I immediately filed a writ petition before the High Court saying that the notice that is issued is in the name of a non-existent entity. Such a company never existed at any point in time. That is why all the further proceedings that have been carried out by the assessing officer are invalid, because the initiation itself by issue of the jurisdictional notice in the name of a non-existing entity itself is bad and illegal. So entire proceedings will be void. The other argument that was taken before the High Court was that the notice was issued post 1st April 2015, and that is why it is time barred. However, the High Court rejected this argument on the ground that it was sent to the postal authority, dispatched rather to the postal authorities on 31st March 15, which is the due date up to which the notice under 148 could be issued. Though the postal authorities franked it on 1st April, and ultimately it was issued somewhere on 4th of April and 6th of April. So the High Court rejected the contention on the ground that the point of considering the date of issue of notice should be the date on which is dispatched to the postal authorities, and there is a stamp that it has been dispatched. So on this ground, it was decided against the SEC. With respect to the issue of notice on a non-existent entity, my point of argument was that Section 170 is not applicable in my case, because Section 170 applies to the successor company post the amalgamation. Here it is, the notice that has been issued is neither in the name of an erstwhile company, neither in the name of the successor company. It is in the name of some another entity, Sesa Sterlite Industries, which company is not existing in the ROC records. So 170 will not apply to me. It also said that I am relying on Maruti Suzuki Supreme Court decision, where they have taken a similar view that notice issued in the name of a non-existing entity will be void, and that is why entire proceedings pursuant to that will be has to be stayed. Now the department argued that the assessee has an option to exhaust the remedy of appeal. It cannot come here before the High Court with respect to these, and Section 170 is very much applicable merely because there was an error which was subsequently rectified by the department through a letter. It should be considered as rectifiable under Section 292B, and both the ingredients of 170 and 292B are squarely applicable. And also the important factor that the department pointed out, that there was a frequent change in the name, frequent change in the registered office of the company, and so the department was finding difficult to figure out the address on which it could be served. So that is why this mistake happened, and this should, just because of this small mistake of mentioning the name, it should not be considered, it should not be prejudicial to the revenue. Now the High Court, considering the submissions of both the sides, said that the purpose and the object of the act has to be considered. These small procedural mistakes, here their prime reason for deciding this writ petition against the SEC was that the SEC has always admitted that it was issued on the right permanent account number, that is the PAN address. So the assessee has admitted that the PAN number mentioned in the notice was correct or in the subsequent proceedings was correct, and it has been corresponding with the department with that PAN number. However, the only rather the defect in the notice was that instead of mentioning it as Sterlite Industries India Limited, it was mentioned as Sesa Sterlite Industries India Limited. However, I have my doubts on it because this company was merged with Sesa Goa, and in turn, at the point in time when the notice under 148 was issued, the company that was in existence was Sesa Sterlite Limited. So yeah, assuming that the High Court saying that just because Sessa has been mistakenly mentioned, it should be considered as a procedural mistake. However, going through the fact, it appears that the entity that was in existence was not Sterlite Industries India Limited, it was Sessa Sterlite Limited. If somebody from the group can point out if anybody has gone through this judgment as to why there is a mismatch in the facts, because in the judgment also the heading says Vedanta Limited, formerly known as Sterlite Industries India Limited. However, if I go back again to the facts, it will show that there was a merger and Sterlite Industries India merged into Sesa Goa Limited. So, and Sesa Goa Limited was renamed probably as Sesa Sterlite Limited. So the company in existence at that point in time was neither Sesa Sterlite Industries India Limited, neither Sterlite Industries India Limited. What was in existence was Sesa Sterlite Limited. So the point taken by the High Court that just because Sesa has been added to the name, mistakenly had added to the name, and the PAN number mentioned was correct, that would be considered as a procedural defect curable under 292B, and the judgment of the Supreme Court will not be applicable. I am still trying to gather the correct facts. If somebody can help, that would be useful in discussing the judgment. In the meantime, over to you, Vipul, sir.
I'm sorry if people got confused about various numbers. Even I got confused when I read the judgment once, twice. I tried to go back to the ROC site. There's a lots of confusion about the various names. Anyway, the issue is very important. That we have got Maruti Suzuki Supreme Court clearly stating that 148 notice or any notice issued in the name of non-registered entity, specifically in the context of amalgamating company, amalgamating company, and Supreme Court, you cannot issue notice in the name of non-registered company. That is, I think, but here what appears to factored in the mind of the Honorable High Court.
Kamal.
Is that no, the SESA, the inclusion of the word SESA was only purely a mistake. So it admitted that the name on which one was issued was not the correct entity. That is admitted by High Court also. But only it gave leeway to a department. Look, you have been, and department cried that you have been changing name or you have been amalgamated, whatever you have been changing address, how department is going to track you? So there is bound to some honest mistake. So by mistake, you know, say so. But that found attractive to the High Court to say that these are only small mistake of SESA because you have been frequently changing names and whatever. Name and address is both. So there is a peculiar fact. You can say, one can say that the ratio of the judgment can be confined to the peculiar facts of this case. It may not have universal implication. Number two, also very important thing that look, now I don't know how anybody can throw light on this. High Court said that look, PAN is same. And SSC admitted a PAN is correct PAN. Now I don't know when 148 PAN was issued. I don't know which PAN was because I understand once a company gets amalgamated, that PAN you have to surrender PAN, whatever, the company name is struck down. And already the amalgamated company, which may be a new one or it may be existing one, it may be having its own PAN number. So where the question of continuing PAN. So I don't know but assuming, you assume that in this fact PAN was the correct PAN on which notice was issued. The High Court also took that into account. It said it's a responsibility of the SSC to make necessary changes in PAN database, whatever. So I think these are again a peculiar facts of this case. One can always distinguish this ratio of the judgment. Otherwise, according to me, the old well-established principle that notice issued in case of dead person or non-existent person, even in respect of amalgamating company, is bad in law. Yeah, any comment?
May, sir, I have one issue.
I'm sorry, one point. I'm sorry, may I, sorry, yeah. See, and important thing is, now again a new dimension, which is little bit, I would not, will scare you or disturbing. There is an intention. Now, is there any kind of service of notice? And on the aspect of service of notice, of course, and the facts of the case, your department, I don't know how they could prove that we have given notice to the department on 31st. Maybe the department franking or acknowledgement is on 1st of April. So the issue is that the service of notice, effectively, it goes out of the hand of the sender. Correct? Issue of notice, sorry, not service. The notice can deemed to have been issued if effectively goes out of the domain or control of the sender, and it goes to department. That may be fair enough. But the intention, while interpreting all these things, the High Court, you also need the intention of the legislator, but 292B, how which mistakes or which errors are to be looked into serious or non-serious. So I think intention also is important thing, which again adding new dimension to the controversy. Sorry, I wanted to add now. Continue, please.
This is one issue, sir, which I wanted to raise. Can the section 170 applied for the case of this type of company which is amalgamated here? Because in the case, can the section 170 be applied, can be applied on the company which has amalgamated to the another company? Recently, we have seen the case of the Vama Sundari case from the Karnataka High Court here, which says that even the notice which has been issued to a non-existent company, that will be considered as a valid notice, and the department has taken this view that it is valid under section 170 subsection 2.
Correct.
So the point that I'm trying to say, when we have the case of the Maruti, which says that the notice issued to a non-existent company is not a valid notice here, I'm not able to understand how the section 170 subsection 2 or 170 will apply, because 170, if you go to the section 170, it talks about the succession to business otherwise than on death here, and it talks about the successor of the business here. So whether by way of amalgamation, can we say that there is a succession of the business, or we say that it was not a succession of the business, the whole company has got merged with the another company, so it was not a succession of the business by the other company, it was the amalgamation of the companies here. So I'm just trying to put trying to point out the difference between the section 170 as well as the Maruti Suzuki case, sir.
Yes, I think again it's a larger issue. Rightly or wrongly, there is no but discussion on 170 in the entire case except of observation. So High Court has never dealt with that aspect. So that is why I refrain from going to this aspect, because again we have got possible time. Because to come to think of it, there are so many other issues. Forget about 170. There are so many like return of income. Today, whether you have revised return, so again, surrender of PAN, ROC, you have to inform ROC. Suppose amalgamated company has to inform the ROC within 30 days that this company is amalgamated, track down the name. So how this thing PAN number can continue, and we have to. I mean, there are larger issues, and to come to 170. So I think they have not discussed the 170 aspect at all. Except the saying that considering 170 properly fully, but there is no either much argument by the SSC or by the department or by the High Court much on the aspect of 170. Now, so that is why I think maybe on some appropriate time we may deal with another interesting issue what you raised, because see, I'll tell you in the context of old 41, the Nandi still will be discussing if time permits. The issue was balancing charge. Now, when the winding up, when a company sells plant and machinery in the process of winding up, in good old days, balancing charge was to tax in the end of the person who sells the plant and machinery to the extent of depreciation. There are judgments again, once companies wind up, it is not in course of business. You cannot say it is in business. The company is not in existence at all. When company not in existence, then you cannot charge business income. I'm just saying, it's a bit drawing analogy from that, and that also they touch upon the aspect of 170, I think equivalent to say 26.2, that equivalent to the 1922 Act. So I think there are many issues, as I said, but we are running short of time. So I thought I'll not touch upon the 170 issue at this stage, but now only one point. This intention is very important. Why I raised the issue, maybe I was not able to clarify further. That no, the High Court says that name for your mistake, you committed mistake, but what was real intention in this case of the department? Department intended that a notice would be served to the new company. The intention, maybe they goof up, there is a mistake by putting strike, knowing what a wrong name which is not in existence, but it was always intended. And if I just read, because very interesting dimension, I said again, if I just allow me to read one or two sentences, thus the verification are done mostly with reference to the permanent account number, and in the event of no change in the permanent account number, then it is to be construed that the notice was issued to the person to whom it is intended to be issued. Issuance is one aspect of the matter, and issued to whom it is intended to be issued is to be considered by the court for the purpose of application of 292B. If the notice was communicated to an unknown person who is alien to SSC, then rightly pointed out by after SSC, the section 292B cannot be held in favor of the revenue. However, if the notice was intended to be issued to a person to whom it is to be issued, and such person also acknowledged PAN number, which is rightly mentioned, and responded to the letter or whatever, then 292B will not save the SSC. So it is important why I raise this issue, intended. So department can do whatever may be a mistake in our notice, our intention always to issue notice to the, and in this case, unfortunately, PAN number was saved admittedly by the SSC. I don't know how, but so how this again a new dimension, intention. So strict letter of law or spirit of law, intention again, how far they will play in the future again is to be seen. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. So Dinkle, you can go to next judgment. As Vipul bhai said, Nandi still may take time. We can discuss it some other time. Just if I take a half a minute of the members, friends, issue in the Nandi still is if business depreciable asset, business asset is sold and it is deemed to be short-term capital gain, whether carry forward losses, business losses can be set off against that. That is an issue. Various Supreme Court judgments have been discussed. So my request to all the members will be kindly study that judgment. So next time, whenever we are discussing the judgments, we will discuss that. With this, my request Dinkle to take a few other judgments.
Dinkle, please. There are two again equally important judgments. One is of course Madras Bar Association, Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Quite though it is not concerning Income Tax Act, but it is very relevant, when you say faces appeal, independence of judiciary and separation of power. People may find it academic, but people may find it academic because Constitution of India issue. It was in the context of service tax, the service rules of ITAT and CSAT, honorable members, and it's a very long judgment. But maybe in time, I would request whenever time, at least some paragraph of that, if that can be shared whenever opportunity is given, because I want to enlighten the people, especially professional, what the Constitution said, what the Supreme Court interpret the importance of independence of judiciary, separation of power, and what we are having in at least CIT appeal, faceless CIT appeal, and I don't know what will happen to faceless tribunal. And according to me, this Madras Bar Association judgment is going to be very important. If while deciding that, because now in CIT appeal, almost the jurisdictional CIT are almost controlling the CIT appeal, appellate or CIT appeal. So I thought that is one thing which is a practical issue also. Other judgment is of course Kirti Chidambaram. Apart from the name, the importance because of the name, but there are certain issues. Why I'm saying, but Bhatnagar can give them time because and so what I can request Rinka is only some two small judgments he can just narrate. which has of course practical value, which in 5 minutes, if it is convenient, otherwise we can rest, whatever you say.
No, yeah, yes, you can give the what is the ratio of these two small judgments. Dinkle, please.
Yeah, sure.
You need not go to the facts. Just give the ratio, principles and the ratio.
Sorry. Yeah. The other judgment that that we'll be discussing is Ramabai Mafatlal Patel. It is the judgment of the Gujarat High Court. It is again in the context of 148 notice issued, served rather, on a wrong address, which was not the residential address of the SSC. So the assessee was a non-PAN assessee. During the year, it had sold certain some land, and the assessing officer realized that it is subject to capital gains or whatever. He had reason to believe that it was subject to capital gains, so he issued the notice. However, the notice was served on the address where the land was sold. Now, because this land was sold, the address was belonging to the purchaser to whom the land was sold, and not the residential address of the SSC. So High Court said that it has to be served on the address of the SSC, and because there was no proper service of notice, High Court referred to various judgments of various High Courts. I may just very quickly point out certain judgments where so there were various judgments where it was issued to a security guard or to the clerk of the father of the SSC or to the manager or to any family member. So in all these cases, the High Courts have considered a view that, considering the provisions of CPC, that it has to be served because it is a jurisdictional notice like 148 and 143 too. These are jurisdictional notices, so one has to serve it to the person to whom it is addressed to. As in, if the name is whoever's name is mentioned in the notice, it has to be personally served to that person's address mentioned. It cannot be served to any other person. If that be the case, then it will be considered as a void service and entire proceedings will be void. So this is the brief background of this judgment. If Sharmaji, any further discussion is required on this point?
Only one more aspect is that here, the department tried to say the interplay between language of 148, 149 by saying that what is required is issued and not served. So I'm just pointing out that aspect also High Court dealt with it. Whoever is interested, because I think an important issue, what is issued and served. But as Dinkle said, there are just a practical issue. One may go through judgment because High Court has referred to various judgment facts based, in which cases the High Courts have said that this is not a proper service. Dinkle says to in some case, even the person manager of the SSC or even the person who used to regularly receive notice on behalf of the SSC, but they said unless it is authorized to receive notice, you cannot. Now, why I'm saying this? Why the judgment is selected apart from practical value? Because one may say, what is the relevance in faceless regime? So, Samaj, in fact, this also with mind about whether that I wanted to discuss in detail this. Okay, what is relevance of all these precedents we have got on 282 and service, how to service, how far they are still relevant for e-regime? And according to me, yeah, of course, we have got artificial information technology rules and income tax had its own method of e-service of various notices. But I got some reservation about this, about the services. Important issue, Sharmaji, very important issue, because today, as I understand, pardon me if I don't know properly, the Mahendrabhai knows, today department has the option to serve out of the 4 or 5 modes of electronic mode. Today, do I have the leeway to say that, look, my PAN email ID or my CA or my company email ID, don't serve notice to that, but serve to this new ID which I am giving you, all my communication. But because if you, of course, we don't have time to go to it, but these are very important issues. I thought I would be discussing, but now we don't have time. But next time, I think whoever is a person would, but I think this important issue we may discuss. And of course, it goes without saying that more of the story is that please update your PAN. Because if you see, so we discussed, I think last year, the Supreme Court judgment, that routine judgment, that if you don't amend or update your PAN database, and the department issued notice as per your PAN database, as it happened in the earlier Vedanta, that PAN was saved. And then I don't think you can then you're difficult to argue that notice is served at wrong place and address, which have relevance with the e-regime also.
Okay.
I think Sinaji.
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah.
Sinha wants to speak.
Yes, Sinaji, you want to say something?
No, sir. On this point, nothing, sir. Thank you, sir.
Nothing. Okay. Then one last judgment you can discuss, Binkle. Because see, though you have worked very hard and you have a lot to share, but then we have to respect the time also.
Samaj, I'll mention, I know, because it's very hard. I'll just, in 2 minutes, I have to summarize.
Yeah.
This is whether, we have explanation 2, 263, it is added, correct? Now, this assessment here is before that amendment, correct?
Okay.
Now, the 263 revision issue, assessing officer had made some inquiry and, allowed assessing's claim. 263 was issued, whatever, we are not going to merits of the issue. But one of the issue raised by the before the court was whether the amendment explanation 2 added by under section 263 is retrospective or prospective. Now, High Court, because High Court on merits allowed the SSC's case about erroneous, it did not go to the aspect. High Court assuming it is retrospective, the explanation 2. In your case, there was an inquiry made by the AO, so we are quashing 263. Now, important thing is this, that explanation 2 of 263 A and B, still talk about if I just read that particular amendment, explanation 2, which said that order will be deemed to be erroneous if the order is passed without making inquiry or verification. And we also said the same thing, without inquiry. Now, in spite of that, High Court said still it is without inquiry. So this will apply only when there is no inquiry. The issue of adequacy or non-adequacy is still not available in the department. Of course, in this case, if SSC assessing officer made proper inquiry, but they said you cannot issue notice even though on the ground that inadequate inquiry, and for that rely upon Delhi Aqua judgment, something, auto and other things. That inquiry, if inquiry is made, even though the CIT may find it inadequate, but that will not give jurisdiction to the CIT. Now, important thing is this concept is reiterated even after taking note of explanation 263. So even department wants to press to explanation, still the old the concept still holds valid. That is what I think which we wanted to convey.
Right.
Of course, as I said, there are many issues to be discussed, but I think I'll rest here.